Hello, welcome to another tutorial in the C programming series. In this one, we'll be talking about a very important topic, fun functions. So functions are a very important topic in programming. You have functions in C, you have functions in C++, Java, Python, every programming language has functions. In fact, you're already familiar with a couple of them. You have already seen printf, that's a function. You have seen scanf, that's a function as well. And most importantly, you have seen main, that is a function as well. So by now, you might be wondering what exactly is a function and why do we need them? So let's understand that with a simple example. Let's say you have two integer numbers with you and you want to find out the maximum of these two numbers. So let's say, so you do something like this. So you'll probably say if num1 is greater than number 2, you'll say max is number 1 and else max is number 2. And of course, we have to define max, which we'll do here, int max. So this is how you typically would do it. Now, let's say after this, you have to create two more variables. Let's say new number 1 and new number 2, which goes something like this. So you have a new number 1 and a new number 2 variable. And now let's say you had to find the maximum between these two numbers. So you'd again have to do this. So you'd again copy paste that and replace this variable with new number 1 and this variable with new number 2. Simple, right? Now imagine if you had to do this 10 times, 100 times in your program, which is quite possible. So that's a lot of repetition. This entire code, this whole if-else block, which is about 6 lines, had to be repeated several times. So instead of doing that, what we'll do is we give a name to this block of code and we'll put it outside. And every time we have to use it, we'll just replace that with the function call. So that would be something like this. So with this, you have a much shorter and cleaner looking code. And this is achieved by using functions. In fact, they help us with a very core and fundamental software development philosophy of DRY, which stands for do not repeat yourself. So instead of writing a piece of code over and over again, we put that in a function and write it only once. So you're reusing your code in other places. This also helps in organizing your program by putting together chunks of relevant code into a function. So this also helps in future changes. So imagine if you had to add an equal to here. So instead of just saying number 1 greater than number 2, let's say you had to add the equal to as well. Here, since we had only copied it twice, we'd have to do it 2 times. So if you had done this tens or hundreds of times, you'd have to go to all those places and change it. But if you put that into a function, you'd only have to change it once. Like using functions makes programs more simpler and more easier. So let's see how you actually create a function. Each function essentially has 3 important things, actually 4. First thing is a name, that is the name with which you identify the function. A body, which is what you put into the function, that is what the function will do. And then you have parameters. So parameters are these things that you pass to a function to help it do the task. So a function may or may not take parameters depending on what exactly it does. So for example, if you see main, it does here, it's not taking any parameters. But for printf and scanf, you always need to pass parameters. So this depends on what the function does. And the last piece of information a function needs to have is a return type. So a return type is what a function returns. We've already covered that a bit in one of the previous tutorials, but let's look at that again. Imagine the smiling stick figure is you, and this other stick figure is the function you have created. So you need some task to be done which this function knows about, that is its body. So you pass in parameters which this function needs. So let's say this function takes 2 parameters to do the task it's supposed to do. So you pass in 2 parameters, these 2 values, to this function. So this process, that is passing the parameters to a function and asking it to do something, is called calling the function, or simply function calls. Now the function takes these parameters you have given and does the computation or the job it's supposed to do. Now after the job is done, the function can do 2 things. Number 1 is it returns the final result of the computation back to you, or it can just simply do nothing. So these are the 2 possible things a function can do. So if the function returns the result back to you, the function is said to be having that specific return type. And if the function doesn't return anything, you will say the function has a void return type. Void implying that the function doesn't return anything. And when the function returns something, it can return any of the data types you are already familiar with. So a function can return a character, a function can return an integer, it can return an array, or it can return any other type as well. So that's what it is. That's what return types and functions mean. So a typical example of functions would look like this. So you will have a return type, which is the data type that the function is returning. It can be, as we have discussed, char, int, array, or any other type. And then the function name with which you identify that and with which you call that function. And parameters, depending on what the function is doing, they might be optional. And then the most important thing, the body, what the function is supposed to do. So this is how a function looks like. So we'll stop this tutorial right here. We'll pick it up in the next one. So I hope that this was useful and it gave you an understanding of what functions are. So we'll learn more about this obviously in the next tutorial and even in the upcoming tutorials as well, when we'll solve a few more problems involving functions. And so until then, take care and keep coding. See ya. Bye bye.